few years ago, I realized that in life, doesn't matter what you're doing, if you want to get to where you want to get to, a few things have to be let go. One thing I realized years ago is that just like rockets, we need to shed off all of the weight that is bugging us down in order for us to be able to gain the altitude that we so need to get where we want to get to. This video is not going to be necessarily about programming. It's going to be about something that I think doesn't matter if you are learning to program or not, or just life in general, which is there are certain habits that you need to develop in order for you to be successful at whatever it is that you're doing. So here are my 9 habits that I have developed throughout the years that allowed me to be successful, if I may say, but most importantly to be super productive. The first one being drink tea. Okay, well, the first one is the habit of always taking care of my body, but most importantly, I work out at least 4 times a week. It used to be 6 times a week, but now I can only do 4 times a week. Now, why is it important to me? Well, this habit is very important because it allows me to do something hard physically every day, at least 4 times a week. That way I can shock my body, and of course there are some awesome health benefits to lifting weights. That is what I mostly do. Of course, I incorporate other things such as cardio and so forth, but lifting weights is what I do, so at least 4 times a week. And now you don't have to be working out per se the way I do. You can go for a run, for a walk, or do push-ups, whatever it is that you do. Just be active at least 3 times a week. The second habit I have is that I don't drink coffee and I don't drink alcohol. So coffee, maybe it's a cultural thing, but I never really acquired the coffee taste. And so I don't drink coffee. And I don't drink alcohol. The same reason is that I never really acquired the taste for alcohol. And so I just don't drink. For me, especially when it comes to alcohol, I just didn't want, maybe subconsciously, I didn't want something that I would be worried about that perhaps would put me or take me to the wrong side of addiction and other things. So that's why it just never crossed my mind. I just don't drink alcohol and don't drink coffee. Now, coffee, of course, it's just something that I never really drank growing up, so I never developed the habit. Number 3 is a little bit controversial in so many ways, and I say that it's not something that I am proud of or something that I encourage you to do, which is, in this case, I don't socialize that much. Now, I understand having a social life is very important. I used to have a very full social life, but then, you get busy, I got married, you have kids and so forth. I don't really have a lot of social life per se. I don't do parties, or I don't go just hang out with a bunch of people. Not that I don't like people, I do, but it's just that my social life has become very small. My social circle, kids, family, wife, and a few friends here and there. So one might say that maybe I should work a little bit on that, but that's just something I don't do too much. And number 4, I'm always listening to podcasts. So when I go to the gym, I'm listening to podcasts, and I've been doing this for, I want to say, I believe 6-7 years. And podcasts are amazing because you're able to learn things while you're doing something else. And it's a habit that I've acquired and has helped immensely. It's funny because the fact that I'm listening to things as I'm doing other things, specifically working out or going on a walk, your brain has this capability of assimilating knowledge, of taking it in, and then it happens that at some point you would say, I know X, Y, and Z, but I don't remember reading it. Where did I hear that, right? It's so amazing because you've been hearing things, you're learning things, I guess not actively, but things are still there. So I will recommend listening to podcasts. If you want to learn more about podcasts, I've got a list of them, but most importantly, my favorite podcast is Tim Ferriss, and he's awesome. I've been listening to him for maybe 7 years, or maybe 10. So very long time. 5th habit is reading. I love reading books. I have lots and lots of books. You probably can't see in the back there. And even on my desk, I always have books. Oh, we'll talk about this one at some point. I have many different kinds of books that I read a few times. It's this Da Vinci, his life. I'll actually do a video about books that I read if you would like. Let me know in the comments below if you would like me to show you or share with you the books that I read. So reading is very important because that's another way of learning and also of engaging your brain. And so I will recommend that. Number 6, I think it ties into what I do for a living. You may not know this, but I'm a software engineer, but mainly I'm a content creator. I'm a teacher. So I create content and I teach people online how to code, how to become software engineers. And so with that, because I have my own business, that requires me to be sane, to say the least. There's a lot of stress involved. This habit that I've developed, I call it learning how to manage stress. Now, this is very important, not only for people such as myself. Anybody needs to learn how to manage stress because we are all under stress one way or the other. So for me, it was important to go through the process of learning more about myself, what stresses me out, and how I am able to self-soothe so that I'm not spiraling, going crazy when it comes to stress and all that. So I'd like to know how you deal with stress, because you gotta have some stress. If you're a human being living in this world, you gotta have some sort of stress. So I'll be very curious to learn how you deal with your stress. Or maybe you don't have stress. Well, in that case, congratulations. The 9th habit that I've developed is the habit of being focused. Now, focus is very important. If you've been watching all of the videos that I've put out, you will find that I talk about being focused in anything you're doing. Now, the thing about being focused is that it can be very daunting, especially if you are an entrepreneur or somebody who has a lot of drive and a lot of things that they want to accomplish in this life. And I'm one of them. I'm very ambitious, to say the least. If you are not focused, then you're easily distracted and you're easily drawn to things like shiny object syndrome. It happens all the time. And the thing about being focused, for me at least, I had to learn to be focused but also be open to new opportunities that may arise. And that is actually the challenge, because what does that mean? Does that mean that I have to shut myself down a little bit to be focused, which is what being focused means? But also, I had to develop this habit of understanding that being focused doesn't mean you have to shut everything down. You have to be aware, you have to be able to listen to other things that are happening, but not necessarily take on to them, but listening, be open, so that if the right opportunity shows up, you're able to get onto that opportunity. That is a good balance. And focus. Now this one here, this habit is probably not the best habit, or maybe a little embarrassing, is the habit of talking to myself. Yes, I don't know if I developed that habit myself or it just was there. I have this habit of talking to myself. Now, before you judge me, I don't talk to myself like walking at the grocery store, supermarket, malls, and talk to myself. No, that is not that kind of talking to myself. What I mean by that is that I'm able to have dialogues with myself, and usually is in a form of putting myself in certain situations and trying to figure out how to get out of those situations. For instance, I talk myself through if I were to have a conversation with Nelson Mandela, or if I have to have a conversation with X, Y, and Z, if I had to write a speech in about 2 hours and I had to present 200,000 people, how would I do that? And so it's a habit I have for years. So I imagine myself in situations and I start talking myself through it, or conversing or dialoguing with myself or somebody, so that I have these ideas on how I would do X, Y, and Z, if that makes any sense. This one is controversial. I'm being vulnerable here, so I actually want to hear if maybe it's just me who has this habit of talking to themselves, right? Usually for me, it's when I'm doing something like driving by myself, so I tend to talk, and it's not really loud. It's not like I'm actually talking. Usually it's internal talk, but sometimes I can actually move my mouth a little bit. So that's a habit that I think it's good, because for me it just puts me in a mode, allows me to think out loud. I had to leave this for the final habit that I've developed is the habit of teaching. Now, the beauty of teaching, you have to realize, is that when you teach, that means you have to learn. So I've developed this habit because I wanted to be able to learn. That way, I am a teacher. And it's a good habit for me because, again, I love learning and I love teaching. And so for me, most of my days, in fact, all of my days, it's working on curriculums, on courses that I create for you guys, and content as well. And of course, coding my own projects and so forth. So it does require a lot of learning. It requires a lot of focus and attention, and I love it. So it's a habit that I have developed and I will continue to develop because that is my thing. That's one thing I would do forever, really. Now, I have to say, most of you may say, well, I'm a terrible learner, or, oh gosh, I don't even know what to do if I had to learn all the time. But you have to remember, for me, I've realized that the most important skill one could have is the skill of learning. So it takes time, and what I would encourage you to do if you're interested in becoming a good learner is to look at the habit of learning, the skill of learning, as the only job security you'll ever have. Truth be told, you can have a job at Google and you could lose that job, right? You could have a normal job and it's possible to lose. But one thing that you can never lose, all things considered, is the ability to learn. That is your currency. That is what will always save you, quote unquote, I believe. So use learning as the only thing that will always guarantee job security, because you can always pick up new skills. You can reinvent yourself. So I always like to say, if you can learn, you'll never go hungry. And there you go. And if you are interested in learning more about how to optimize your learning, I have a video that talks about 80-20 Pareto rule, which is really interesting and really gets you going when it comes to optimizing your learning. Okay, so that is it for me. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this was also a way for you to get to know me. I really would like to hear about you. I want to hear what you think, what are your thoughts in all of these 9, I believe there are 9 habits that I've developed. Which one resonates with you, which ones you've never heard of, or which ones actually you would like to try, and so forth. So please don't be shy. I love to hear from you. Just leave a comment and let's discuss about this. It's interesting, right? Okay, thank you so much. Be well, and I'll see you next time.